Reality really bites. When even the New York Times is admitting that reality is getting in the way of Democratic candidates, especially down in Georgia, also in places like Arizona where the border is a big issue, well, you know you're doomed. I mean, when you've lost the New York Times, right? Let's face it. Reality is coming back to haunt the Democrats in a massive way, from the economy to the border disaster to everything that's happening internationally. This is becoming what you might call a major, massive headache. Wait till you hear these numbers. I have them. The latest numbers for the month of April, the number of border apprehensions. I mean, it just keeps growing and growing and growing and getting worse. And you know what? Homeland Security is now telling us be prepared because it's going to be even worse next month. And this is despite the fact that Title 42 is still staying in place. Meanwhile, you got to wonder, where the heck is Kamala Harris on this? I mean, if you look at her schedule, the LA Times has been keeping track. They're calling it her shifting focus. I'm calling it CYA. She wants to be so far away from this issue that she doesn't know how to even begin to tackle, which ought to tell you, she really shouldn't be the Vice President of the United States now, should she? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Trish Regan Show. I am Trish. It's good to have you here. Quick reminder, portions of today's program are brought to you by Legacy Precious Metals. Never been a better time to invest in precious metals than right now. So if you haven't, you need to. Go to legacypminvestments.com for more, legacypminvestments.com for more. I'm going to also talk a little bit about the markets and about gold coming up later in the program. But first, let's begin on this news about our border. Homeland Security, the head of it, is trying to warn us that, well, you ain't seen nothing yet. 234,088 people, they were apprehended in the month of April at the U.S.-Mexico border. But it's apparently going to get worse. It's going to get worse for a whole lot of reasons, and I'll tell you, this is going to wind up costing Democrats politically. We know that it will get worse in part because of the messaging that's coming from the White House. I mean, Mayorkas kind of sort of said in his video today, don't come here, but that has not been a consistent message, right? Let's be honest here. That has hardly been the message from the Democrats. I mean, it's not apparently a winning message for their base. Although you have to wonder, in time, will that change? Given that everyday Americans are just upset about this. You had 110,000 people that were released into the country out of the 234,088 just in the month of April. So people want to know, I mean, why are we releasing so many people? I guess maybe we can't take care of them all. That's part of the issue. You know, why are they coming here in the first place? I mean, that's sort of the bottom line that really needs to be tackled. And I know, they're going to give us the song and dance about the root causes, etc. I get it. But look, you have a country for a reason. No other country in the world would just allow you to walk in like ours does right now. And I spent some time looking through the budget that President Biden has proposed. And the fiscal budget, anyway, that we saw in late March, that actually had a cut of 8% to ICE, which helps to patrol, right? It's customs enforcement that helps to patrol the border. And yet at the same time, you saw a 700% increase. I'm going to pull up these numbers in aid for non-citizens so that we could assist with the processing of their applications and their care. Again, an increase of a staggering 700% in the amount of funding for, quote, non-citizen processing and care so that they would have speedier service and, I don't know, more ground transportation, more beds. I mean, we got to get a handle on this, guys. I mean, this is not right to be charging American taxpayers for all of this. And for them to sit there and just tell us that it's going to get worse, come on. Meanwhile, whatever happened to the vice president who was supposed to be in charge of this entire issue? Where is she on this? I actually have some really interesting information I want to share with you in just a moment. But before we do that, I want to point out that it seems as though the White House is aggressively working to protect all these people. The 700% increase, for example, in non-citizen processing and care, while simultaneously kind of, sticking it to the American taxpayers. I mean, it feels like the priorities are all kind of all over the place. I mean, you look at what Americans are dealing with right now in terms of higher energy prices, the prices at the gas pumps being at an all-time high, and there's no desire, no will, for whatever reason, to get any of this under control. I've actually proposed a lot of different things, and yet you have no willingness from Biden and company to deal with the reality, which is why I led this podcast saying reality bites. And the New York Times is admitting it. We're going to get to that in just a second because it's a great headline I really want to share with you. But before, I just want to point out that, look, we need, as everyday Americans, to stand up for American values. And there's a wonderful organization out there that's doing exactly that. It's called AMAC. It's the Association of Mature American Citizens. And this is a group of people, more than 2 million of us, that care about American values, standing up for them, conservative values, every single day in Washington, D.C. and all over the country, so that American taxpayers and individuals don't wind up having their interests put aside for something that might be politically expedient for certain parties. I mean, it's just so important that somebody's out there, right, sticking up for us. So this is a terrific group, and I wanted to just flag it for you. If you are not a member, you should become one. If you are a member, you should look at renewing, because it's just $16 a year and you get all kinds of discounts on cell phone service plans, on travel, that's your airfare, your hotel, restaurants. So you're going to make the 16 bucks back in no time. But your $16 is going to go so far with everybody else's in there as well to help push forward policies that you care about, that I care about, and that we collectively care about. So I want you to go to amac.us/Trish, my name, amac.us/Trish, and think about enrolling today. It is well worth it. Like I said, you're going to make that money back in all those discounts in no time, and you know that you're part of something bigger, right? You're helping to preserve American freedom and our way of life. So important stuff, amac.us/Trish. But let's get back to Kamala, because she's clearly realized this is like not a winning situation at all. And I found this really fascinating. If you look at her schedule that the LA Times actually keeps tabs on, what you would see is that actually in the last 8 months, she hasn't done any events on the border. I mean, wow, right? Talking about a shifting focus, which is exactly what they call it. In fact, the title of this section in the piece in the LA Times is called Harris's Shifting Focus. The subject matter of the events has also changed, they write, over time. According to our analysis, the Times analysis of the text of her schedules, these charts show the frequency of events for select categories over time. And you see all the categories, and what do you know? Immigration has declined significantly. You see, it is a no-win issue for her. I get it, but this is a problem, right? This is intrinsically so much of the problem, because you get a bunch of politicians out there that are just doing what's right for them right now. They think, okay, will this play in Peoria? If it does, great. If it doesn't, I'm running from that issue as fast as I can. And so nobody's actually trying to solve anything. She's not actually trying to fix this. She talked a good game about the root causes, right, of why we have these immigration problems. The root causes are the reality that you got tons of corruption, you got socialist regimes down there, you've got violence, you've got drug cartels, and instead of saying, hey, we don't want it here, I don't know what she's trying to do. She's trying to say she's going to fix it all. Good luck, okay? You're not going to fix it. You're just not going to fix it overnight, certainly. And we don't have the money and the wherewithal to fix it. So don't you want to kind of prevent it from coming here? Apparently not. I mean, look at these numbers. 234,088 apprehended there in the month of May, with 110,000 released into our country. And they didn't want Title 42 to stay in place. Title 42 basically said, because of COVID, you can't come here and stay here. right? Like I mean, 110,000 came here and stayed here just last month and were released into the country. But at least Title 42 curbed some of it. Some of it. But they actually wanted to get rid of that altogether. I mean, it's really bizarre. It's really bizarre because you have to ask, where are their priorities? In fact, one of the underlings there at the Department of Homeland Security was testifying on Capitol Hill and said to Josh Hawley that his feeling was you would actually see lower numbers. Bear with me here. You gotta put your thinking cap on this for this one. Lower numbers of migrants coming here if they got rid of Title 42. Go figure, right? It takes all kinds and all kinds of interpretations of things. I think it's pretty obvious. If Title 42 were to go away tomorrow, you would see a huge uptick in the number of people coming here. Mayorkas actually even alluded to that, Homeland Security trying to somehow, in their rather not so straightforward way, discourage people from coming to our border. He did say, be warned, because we're going to have many, many, many more people coming soon, in part because of disinformation that the cartels are spinning. I mean, they call it disinformation with cartels. Like, I think it's just the cartels are trying to make a buck, right? So you've got people that are traffickers, human traffickers, that know they can take people's money. They can promise them, oh no, really, Title 42 is going away, even though it's not. And, there's tragedy that ensues. And of course, we have to deal with the ramifications. Look, it's a total mess. It's a total disaster. But I think if you started with some rhetoric that was stronger in terms of letting people know, look, hey, no go, right? It's not going to happen. You come to the border, you're going to be sent home immediately. So there's no point in doing it. And that's just what has to be done in light of the situation we're in. And so I get back to, look, I'm just a realist. I have a very big heart and I want to help everyone. And I'd love to be able to help everyone, but I also believe in helping Americans. And I believe in having some sensitivity to the states that are dealing with these challenges. For example, places like Texas, places like Arizona, that are shouldering this burden entirely, really themselves, because they're not getting much help from the federal government. Not much help at all. Again, remember that fiscal budget was cutting ICE by 8% while increasing the aid for the immigrants that are trying to be here by 700%. I mean, hopefully some of that will go to the shelters in terms of being able to deal with all this. But I think you also just need to be realists in all of this and say, okay, we can't handle it. We can't handle it. I think that some Georgia politicians are figuring that out. Let me share with you the headline from a piece this week in the New York Times. The New York Times, not exactly what we'd call a conservative publication, right? Democrats fight headwinds in Georgia and beyond. Quote, the problem is reality. Of course, reality. I mean, reality, guys. I realize you live in another world where, the biggest issue you're facing certainly isn't how to put food on the table every day or how to keep your kids safe every day. I realized a long time ago you were focused on other things, but I realize in the here and now you are very focused on other things that, everyday Americans don't have the luxury to really care about in the way that you want. So it would be smart. And certainly I don't want these guys to win because I think their policy is a complete total disaster, especially on the economic front, but certainly on the international front too. I don't want them to win, but I'm going to give them a little advice. You know what? You got to think about how this sits with everyday folks, not just the extremists in your base. Joe Biden, you didn't get elected because you were out there courting AOC's fans. You got elected by independents who actually thought, okay, well, maybe you're a steady guy and you will not completely screw things up. Of course, you did completely screw things up. Just look at gas prices. Just look at inflation, 8.3%. My goodness, and wholesale prices now in double digits, as I predicted months ago, right here on this podcast. And we've got a border situation that, has never seen the likes of 234,000 people trying to cross in, apprehended at the border. So, Joe, you screwed up. And yet you're still trying to push a narrative that is so out of sync with where the rest of the country is. And so this is reality right now. The economy's in a bad spot. You got major inflation. You've got a border problem, and you've got international problems. So no, I don't think the Democrats can campaign on that. I mean, hey, like, I don't think that's a winning strategy. Do you? Really? And so they're going to have problems, and the New York Times is recognizing that. I mean, to think that, you're a Democrat in Arizona, I mean, how do you campaign when your constituency is worried about the safety of their kids? I would also point out that all of these things are costing taxpayers, certainly in places like Texas and Arizona, Florida as well. But they're costing all of us. I mean, you look at the amount of money being spent on programs like the $1.9 trillion, stimulus for infrastructure that is doing nothing but driving inflation higher. All this money that is totally misspent. And so all we're doing is racking up more and more debt, making it more and more difficult for not just our children and our grandchildren, but ourselves in the here and now. Everybody used to think, okay, this will be a problem in the future. No. It's a problem right now, which is, again, why I just say, look, you got to be thoughtful about your savings. I'm going to get a quick plug in here for one of our fantastic, wonderful sponsors, Legacy Precious Metals. It's the reason why I really feel like you've got to just take matters into your own hands and think about where your portfolio and your savings is going to be as we move forward on this trajectory with so much debt. The market closed on Monday down 2% and change on the NASDAQ. Tech stocks were really, really getting killed. The Dow kind of traded flat. I'm still very worried about the stock market right now because I don't think we're out of the bear market yet. And I do remember a time back in the year 2000 when the NASDAQ tanked 75%. And then it took, 15 years to just get back to breaking even? So you need to be smart about all this. And again, it gets me back to gold. I look at gold today, again, up nearly 1%, $1,865 an ounce. But I almost don't, I'll tell you, I have gold in my portfolio. I don't even necessarily care on a day-to-day basis. I watch it, I look at it, I like it when it's up. And I don't worry when it's down. In fact, when it goes down, I actually buy more because I'm a believer in having a certain percentage of your portfolio. 1 to 5% is usually the rule of thumb, depending on your age and your desire to retire at some point. All those things come into play. So give gold a consideration. Hey, maybe silver too. Silver did pretty well in Monday's market, up nearly 2% at $22. So that's another one to take a look at. That's the silver continuous contract. These folks can help you with all of it. You can get a gold-backed IRA. You can get silver, gold delivered directly to you. Just call 1-866-589-0560. Again, that's 1-866-589-0560. LegacyPMInvestments.com is their number. But again, I think that you got to be really thoughtful on this market right now because it could get worse before it gets better. The S&P down almost 1% in Monday's trading. I do want to point out that the S&P has a lot of those FANG stocks in it, so it's very tech-centric, and that's one of the reasons why it's more down in trading today as opposed to what we saw on the Dow, where it kind of eked out an evenness there, up just a 0.1% there at the end of trading. I'm watching oil as well, which is at $110 a barrel. I'm still sticking by my call for $130 a barrel on oil. If you are interested in investing in oil, it's a little bit tricky because this is all futures contracts. You might look at an index, something like the FENY, which I've mentioned before. FENY is the ticker symbol because that gives you some exposure. It actually tracks oil really, really well, and then you don't have to worry about, your options expiring. So that's the Fidelity MSCI Energy Index ETF. That actually traded up today about 0.3%. Anyway, hopefully that helps. I talk about a lot of this actually on my locals page. So I encourage you to go there, trishregan.locals.com. I actually mention some of the things I'm personally investing in, and I try to give you a feel for how much fear is out there in the market on a given day and how you might think about reacting, or at least how I'm thinking about reacting to all of this. So I encourage you to go to Locals and sign up for that. That's trishregan.locals.com. It is great to have you here. If you have not subscribed to the podcast on Spotify and on Apple iTunes, do me that favor. Please make sure you do. Also, Google Play, please make sure you subscribe to it as well there. Wherever you get your podcasts, I'm here for you every single day. I love being able to communicate directly with you. So hit the alert button as well, that little bell, ding, 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 so that you actually hear from me when these podcasts come out. It's really, really important in light of what we're all dealing with big tech. So help me break through that, and I will see you right back here tomorrow.